Welcome back. You've got your log line, you've got your book description, and you have an elevator pitch that you're ready to give to agents. But here's the brutal truth: none of that matters if you don't give it to the right agents. It's like dressing up for a job interview and then walking into the wrong building. In this video, I'm going to teach you how to avoid that fate by finding agents who are actively interested in what you are writing, and you're going to get a system of how to track all of those agents so you stay sane while in the querying trenches. So I'm going to be ranking the different levels of information sources that you can and should be using to find agents to query. Publishers Marketplace, QueryTracker.net, and ManuscriptWishlist.com are all amazing and are regularly updated with what agents want or have been acquiring. They are great resources. Please note that Publishers Marketplace is a paid service, but if you have it, it is invaluable. A reliable source, as long as these places have been updated recently, are acknowledgement pages in books, although note that version of recent is at least 2 years old. Agency websites, agent interviews, although those are pretty rare. You're going to want to proceed with caution of lists or random blog posts and social media bios without recent activity because they're either outdated or not easily verifiable. What you do want to avoid is anything over 2 years old. Sites that charge money for agent information aside from Publishers Marketplace, and forums where people guess about agents or talk about them without actually having experience. On QueryTracker.net, authors are allowed to comment on their experience with wait times or rejections or requests from an agent, but also know that these can be colored by emotional responses, and you should take them with a grain of salt. I recommend that you go into the comp titles that you have acquired in an earlier lesson and look at the acknowledgement pages and find who the agent is. After you've gotten those names, you want to verify that they're still active. You can go to the websites that I mentioned, like QueryTracker.net, Publishers Marketplace, and agency websites to make sure that they are still in the agency that they were at before or have moved to a new place. And are they open to queries? Have they changed what genres they're interested in, etc., etc. You want to look for recent deals of theirs if possible. You might be able to do that through social media because a lot of authors and even agents will share Publisher Marketplace announcements for those who don't have accounts. But for example, if someone's last young adult acquisition was in 2019, you probably don't want to go to them with your young adult in 2025. Find their submission guidelines. Every agent has a preference, and you need to follow those preferences because otherwise you're going to end up in the trash. And if you are following them on social media, which I highly recommend you do, you should keep an eye out if they are mentioning books that they are obsessed with, because you can use those to your advantage when you are personalizing your query to that particular agent, which we will be talking about in a future lesson. Here are some red flags to avoid. If they are charging money in any way or you can't verify information about them, including any promises to get you published, run. That is not something that can actually be promised in publishing, and anyone who pretends otherwise is either knowingly or unintentionally running a scam. If their website hasn't been updated in years, then you don't have the confidence that they are going to be able to appeal to modern readers and editors and also help you market your book when the time comes. If they don't have any established authors on their client list themselves, that is normally okay. But if the agency that they are a part of doesn't, then you might want to think about moving on. The reason I say it's okay for an agent to not have any established authors on a client list is that agents have to build up their client list over time. Many agents start out as literary agent interns like I did and then get promoted to assistant, which I did as well, even though I was at a different company. And then they become an agent in their own right. They will have been working on their boss's list while building their own for a while. And that means that they couldn't give a ton of attention to their own list until they got promoted. You're also going to want to be wary of an agent who requests your full manuscript immediately. Now, sometimes I get excited about a book and I'll ask for a full manuscript, but there are news stories of so-called agents who ask for a full manuscript and then either plagiarize the manuscript as their own or sell it to someone else. And you don't want your work getting stolen. You shouldn't go in to the querying process assuming that an agent is going to steal your work, and making an agent sign an NDA to promise not to steal your work is actually a huge turnoff for them. So I don't recommend you do that. But if an agent wants your full manuscript immediately, you are okay to be a little bit wary. And if your email bounces, you can either check to see if they have moved agencies and changed their email, or you could just write it off and move on. Trust your gut, because if something feels off, it probably is. Organization is everything in publishing, and here are some things that you should be tracking. Agent name and agency, their email address, genres they represent, recent deals and clients, and their submission requirements. If you can find their response time frame on querytracker.net or their rate of requests versus rejections, that is also good information to track. When you eventually submit your work, although we are not yet at that point in this course, you should track when you have sent it, what materials you sent, how you personalized that email, whether you received a response once the time comes, and what the next action is for that query, if any is needed. You're also going to track when you should be following up. This is actually something you should do before you hit send on the query. Another place to find agents that might be interested in acquiring your stuff are conferences. Even if you're not physically going to a conference, you can look at who is speaking or attending, because they are often looking for new clients. And if you find an agent you like, you should look up their clients on social media and see what type of vibe they have, because you want to make sure that you are going to be joining a group of people that you like, even if an agent normally doesn't have all their authors interacting with each other, because you can tell a lot of a person's character by who they attract and who works with them. I mentioned younger and newer agents coming up through the ranks, and they tend to have faster responses. This can be a really good advantage for you to have. So you want to follow agencies' social media, maybe their newsletters if they have them, to see who's getting promoted, and then query within 1 to 2 months of a promotion. But research can quickly become procrastination in disguise, and I want you to set limits so that you are not falling down a rabbit hole and never taking action. You need to find 15 agents and then stop. This will be your first batch of querying. It could even be your first 2 batches if you break it up into 7 or 8, or first 3 batches if you do it in groups of 5. But that is more than enough agents to find to start querying. I don't want you to research one agent for more than 2 hours under any circumstance. And if you can't find information on them within that time period, then it's definitely time to move on. And your eyes will need a break after 3 hours, no matter how many agents you are able to cram into that research session. Take a break, because fresh eyes will catch details that tired eyes will miss. You should also be ranking your agents, dream, target, and safety. And I don't think you should query your dream agents from the start. If you want to get feedback from target and safety agents first, that then gives you time to improve your query and your submission materials before you tackle the dream agents. But it is up to you. So remember, you want to find agents who are interested in your work and are actively searching for it, or have recently done something in your genre. Because even if they represented the Hunger Games, that was years ago, so you don't know if they're still going to be interested in young adult dystopia. You also need to follow their submission guidelines, know what they are so you don't break those rules by accident, and also be wary of the red flags that I mentioned that might indicate that an agent is not a good call. In our next lesson, we're going to be talking about timing your queries. I mentioned wanting to query a new agent who got promoted within 1 to 2 months of said promotion, but there are a lot of other factors at play of what make a good time to query versus a bad time to query. Strategic timing can be the difference between landing in an agent's focused morning inbox or getting buried under holiday chaos, and we want to make sure that you are not the latter.